worked, right? We should be live.
I can't get in.
I think we're live.
Yep.
There's a
Yep,
good
we're
chance we're
there.
live.
Wow. I don't know about VapeNet though.
Okay, we'll figure that one out as we go.
Yeah, my computer's doing some really weird stuff right now.
Well, hi everybody. It's Sunday again. Thanks for joining us. Again, pardon as we still get organized because there's a few things that weren't quite ready to go today. So, in other words, Knox missing. So that explains everything. Knox missing.
Yeah.
And we have some guests with us today.
instead.
Let me go through and make sure everybody's introduced. Of course, everybody knows Robin and
Hey, guys.
Alex, and we have Stefan with us today. So,
Yay.
Hi all.
Thanks for being here.
Anytime.
You too, Alex.
oh, we love having Alex join us.
Absolutely.
I mean, something's got to
I
make
like
up for
being
my ugly
here.
mug.
What?
I said something's got to make up for my ugly mug.
Damn.
Aw.
So we're into January 25th, 2015, and of course this is Vapers Worldview, and we try to bring you as much information in our little 2 short hours that we can about the advocacy world, news and information, and if you came here looking for a juice review or a mod review, yeah, we might get one for you one day. We're still working on it.
Wow.
So, you know, we usually have Knock take over at this point and cover some of the advocacy stuff, but I'm going to throw it to Alex to tell us what's going on at the state level while I take a peek in my mail and see what I can see for the local stuff.
Well, I've got a huge list. Wow, I just realized my list of bills that we have our eyes on. Some of these are not of any consequence. Some of them are okay. Some of them are not going anywhere. But my list,
Sorry.
I've currently got 50 bills on my list
Wow.
over not that many states.
50?
Yeah, 50.
Wow.
That includes, there's like 3 of these that nothing's really gonna, they're not bad. It's nothing we're gonna do things about. There's a handful in here that are just sort of duplicates and aren't really gonna go anywhere. But just to kind of put that into perspective, and I've actually been kind of having some back and forth with a reporter about the legislation this year. Just to give you some perspective, last year in January, CASA issued 1 call to action at the state level, and that was for Kentucky. This year already, we've issued calls to actions for Alaska, Indiana, Montana, New York, for 4 states. Then that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 11 different bills. So when we were talking about how this year was going to be, we weren't joking. It's a very busy year, and this is how I've been spending my weekends.
But you get paid by the bill, right, Alex?
Yes, I get exactly $0 per bill. So I'm rich. But yeah, that's that. So this past week we had a hearing in Montana. It sounds like a good deal of people turned out for that. Good job, Montana. A lot of, I think, helpful dialogue with some lawmakers there. One of the committee members, actually, one of our members spoke to a committee member after the hearing, and she said that she received more email for SB 66 than she has seen for any years that she's been on that committee or in the legislature. So again, way to go, Montana. Thanks for participating. And it's the actual detail on the bill doesn't really say anything new. It still lists it as going to a hearing on the 19th. But it was my understanding that it wasn't necessarily moving on. That I think that we're going to take another look at it and perhaps change the language a bit. Of course, our objection to the bill, it prohibits sales to minors, but the way that it's worded, of course, it uses the term electronic smoking device, and there was some question as to whether or not it would subject these products to existing tobacco regulations, which the bill's sponsor actually got up and said that no, it wouldn't. It's very specifically worded in the bill that this is just prohibiting sales to minors, but there were parts of the bill, so it sounds like they're going to take another look at it. And then we saw New Orleans, which is local, but New Orleans adopted its smoking law, which for those of you who don't know, New Orleans previously did not have a smoking ordinance, so this is brand new for them. Unfortunately, electronic cigarettes were caught up in that decision. And I guess I had spoken last week, I don't know if it was here or if it was just on Jan's podcast. There's sort of a compromise was reached in that vape shops are exempted from the ordinance. And if someone were to throw an expo in New Orleans, you would be able to vape there.
Sweet.
But as far as everything else is concerned, they are treating vaping just like smoking, so not necessarily a victory. So too bad for New Orleans in general. New Orleans to me is kind of like Las Vegas. I don't really think of New Orleans as being a wholesome family Disney World type of experience, so I don't quite, whatever. If you want to go hang out on whatever street in New Orleans and smoke and drink and look at naked people, then that's what you should do, I guess. Anyway.
Hang on that price line. Look at my flight to New Orleans.
I was just going to say, excuse me while I make my reservation.
What you do, and Las Vegas, New Orleans, go look at naked people. General sin and debauchery. Strange places to enact healthy lifestyle laws.
Don't judge me, Alex. Don't judge me.
I'm not judging anybody. I, unlike the city of New Orleans, don't care what you do as long as you're not, physically harming other people.
Right.
So, so have a good trip.
Funny.
And then, let's see, what else did we issue last week? Alaska, Indiana. I think we issued an update for Indiana. Both of which are looking at indoor use bans that include electronic cigarettes. I guess I should probably be posting these calls to action in the chat. People know where to find this stuff. Come on, right?
Yeah, I would
You
think
guys
so.
all follow us. So here is Alaska. Oh, it's asked me to sign in. I already signed in.
We'll get those links up for you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That takes the pressure off, Alex. Don't worry, man.
There's Alaska. And Alaska has two different versions of their proposal here. One of which sort of brings electronic cigarettes into their existing smoking law, which sounds like it has a lot of exemptions. the other one is expanding the smoking law and including either way, it's treating vaping like smoking, and we're not amenable to that. And then I think, let's see, Indiana was at the. There's some licensing issues in Indiana. I think this is the one. So we haven't quite issued a call to action for this because I think it's going to require some more thought. But HB 1235 imposes lots of regulations for someone wanting to manufacture e-liquid in the state of Indiana. And of course, there's the provision that if you want to sell e-liquid in Indiana, it has to be from a manufacturer that's licensed by the state of Indiana, which essentially cuts out, all out-of-state manufacturers, unless of course Indiana is going to try to regulate the entire country. And there are provisions in here. Yeah, that's not going to fly. There are provisions in here like a $5,000 non-refundable application fee. You have to contract a security firm. They're very specific about, you have to have a surveillance package and all kinds of stuff that I don't even think they require for, a tobacco manufacturer. Which, I don't know if any of the big companies actually manufacture cigarettes in the state of Indiana. But of course, they're exempt from this as well. So again, it's a complicated issue, and we've seen this also pop up in Mississippi. The Mississippi bill doesn't have the same kind of financial impact that this does. But these licensing requirements are things that we're conscious of, and we're trying to look a little bit harder at them so we can formulate an appropriate response. Because in some cases, like New York, it's simply a matter of registering with the Department of Health. There's no other regulation, a small fee in order to register so that they can do compliance checks to make sure you're not selling to minors, which is not terribly burdensome and seems to make sense. But this Indiana bill is absolutely not that.
Gotcha.
And I will toss that in there. Let's see what else we got. So we talked about Montana. New York. Another update is coming for New York. I'm working on that tonight. AB 2595 is an indoor use ban, and actually Greg pointed out this has it's concerning because it seems like this might actually go somewhere, and it is somewhat reasonable, which I think makes it even more threatening. It provides for an exemption for vape shops and an exemption for any venue that wants to host, for example, a vaping expo. The only thing is that it can only happen for 2 days in one calendar year. So if you pick a venue, you throw a vape meet, it basically can only happen for 2 days once a year.
Wow.
And it basically brings vaping into New York State's smoking law, which there's some legalese about it, but it actually extends to outdoor seating areas at restaurants and so on. If it's not covered by, say, an awning, you can have like 25% of the outdoor space dedicated to allowing someone to vape, but it has to be, so many feet away from the door. It can only be 25%, and so on. And that's, again, outdoor exposure to vapor is not.
Was there any conditions on the face
really
of the
shouldn't
moon
be
or anything
regulated
like that?
No, New York State, although people might think otherwise, both New York State and California do not have any regulatory authority over the moon.
Okay, just checking.
So, nothing to worry about there. We are also watching a bill in Vermont, which, if I got this right, there's some just bad stuff happening in New England, Vermont, and Connecticut. Well, is Connecticut New England?
Yes.
It's sort of its own country. So
Everybody outside of Connecticut.
Vermont
Connecticut's New England.
All right, yeah. So Connecticut is looking at a bill that would prohibit the sale of. I'm sorry. This is Vermont. Vermont is looking at a bill that would prohibit the sale of e-liquid in any other flavor besides menthol.
Now, let me go back and check this one, okay? So,
I don't get it.
no tobacco flavor, but you can have menthol.
Correct. Not even like flavorless.
Just straight menthol.
Just menthol. Menthol is the only flavor that is allowed in Vermont.
Where's that coming from?
This is. We're still looking at this. There's this one and some of the ones in Connecticut we're still looking at. We're not quite ready to issue calls to action for this, so please don't freak out and start, getting on the horn to people. We're still kind of assessing this, but I did want to kind of let people know that these are out there and they're on our radar. Connecticut has a similar bill that would require e-liquid to be completely flavorless. Yeah. So we've got some real goofballs out there, and that's just a fraction of stuff. Just to give you the idea. Those are just things that we are concerned about right now.
Let me run down some of the local stuff. There's, I just want to cover that during the last week we saw, and these, I'm just going to list the cities that we saw ordinances in last week, which was Saratoga, California, Victorville, California, Yountville, California, Waco, Texas, Vero Beach, Manhattan Beach, San Francisco, Santa Clara, Olmsted County, Minnesota, Delray Beach. Let me get the next page. Green Lake, Colorado. That was just last week. Those are all done. Those have all happened. This week we're looking at one that we've been made aware of that is in Salem City, Oregon. Salem City, Oregon. It's tomorrow, and it's this particular ordinance pertains to the prohibition of electronic cigarettes on city-owned properties. So, I'm not going to go too far into that. We've seen this bill 100 or this type of ordinance and the response for this type of ordinance hundreds of times. But again, just to remind you, we need your ears listening to what's going on. That's still a lot of stuff.
Hmm?
Yep. And it's still January.
It's January.
True. Yeah. Wow.
Before we go into our discussion topic, I'm going to put Robin on the spot here. And so, Robin, what did you do all week?
What did I do all week?
Yeah.
I went to Washington,
So tell me
and
what's going on
Washington
in
State, not D.C. Yeah. Washington State, not D.C. And you were with me, so you know what I did. But we met with a lot of vendors from that state, and you and I were there. Greg Connolly from AVA was there. Pamela Gorman was there, and basically the guys from Mount Baker Vapor brought us out to meet with all the vendors, and a lot of stuff went on. A lot of questions and answers, and I think that people got educated. But I got to be honest and tell you, to me, the biggest thing that came out of that whole meeting is that all these little subgroups within that big group of vendors all started to talk to each other, because they were all running in different directions, I think. And they're actually communicating now. Maybe they can all pull together and work in one direction instead of everybody running in different directions. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. I think that was one of the biggest things when we got up there. We helped everybody get on the same page and
Yeah.
talked about a new way of looking at advocacy, and the reason why I wanted Robin to cover that is that's where we're going to on our first topic.
Yep.
Stefan, you and I were talking earlier, and you had an observation about what we're looking at now, why it seems so different this year than last year.
I think it's because we've all been on this enormous learning curve and learning all the political stuff that we weren't really all that well versed in. We've been getting better at being in direct touch with elected officials. So what we're getting is more information sooner instead of more information later. And I think it might actually be skewing the way we perceive what's going on, because we feel like, okay, we're in just the first month of the year and everything's already so overwhelming. But maybe it's because we just get everything earlier and quicker this year because we've grown better at it.
Yeah, I think so too. And not only are we getting the information a little bit earlier, but the other thing I think we're getting is, I think everybody got used to a type of response last year. Because we got the information so late, basically the place where we had to act was, oh my goodness, there's a hearing going on. We need to get to the Capitol. We need to get to City Hall. And that was the response that we understood because we hadn't seen what was going on in the process before. And
Exactly.
and now we're finding out that, and again, it's an issue of education. We're finding out that we can affect politics way early, and it's time for us to start trying to learn how to use that correctly. Fix that echo.
Yes, the idea of having earlier access to information, it's one of those things we've all been talking about the past year. Forge relations with your elected officials, do this, do that. I think we might have actually taken our own advice there.
So what do you think about that, Alex?
Which part?
About the fact that we're getting the information so early about how we should respond to it.
Well, the first thing is that there's not much. Yes, there is a value to getting in touch with lawmakers before this stuff hits the floor or hits a committee. I think, all of us being able to see draft legislation prior to being introduced, and it sounds like people taking an opportunity to actually get FaceTime with lawmakers. And, something actually I think Pamela has pointed out, that none of these guys want to introduce bills that would be potentially embarrassing to them. So it's actually, and they know this, it's in their interest to work with stakeholders and come up with laws that make sense before they read it in the legislature. Not that that's always going to happen, and of course that's not to say that people should kind of go out on their own and start giving ideas to lawmakers, but I think that, like you said, people making themselves available to lawmakers gives lawmakers the opportunity to reach out when it's important, and hopefully that conversation for some of these bills goes in the direction of, yes, don't introduce any words here at all that you've written. In other cases, like packaging issues and sales to minors, I think people can give some very thoughtful feedback and help make some actual useful legislation.
one of the things that I think about is in general. What do you think the vapors feel the best response is to legislation, period? I mean, just your average vapor, somebody who really isn't in the advocacy game. What do you think that they feel is how they should respond? I'll throw it around the room. Robin, what do you think?
How they should respond?
Yeah.
To be, you're going to take me to a different topic altogether.
Well, no,
I think
don't. You got to forget you're an advocate for a moment, and you know some things. But what do you think the average person thinks they're supposed to respond?
How they're supposed to respond?
Yep.
By writing letters? Is that what you mean? I think maybe they think by email, that kind of thing. If they choose to do anything at all, I think that probably they choose to do that.
Okay, Stefan, what do you think?
You know what? I hang out in a lot of different groups online, and I'm getting the impression that it sort of depends on what group you ask.
Yeah.
There's the group who really doesn't care and doesn't want to do anything, and then there's the group who does care but prefers someone else to do something about it. Then there's the group who's really active but they're sort of directionless. So I don't think there's a single answer to how vapors would like certain things responded to.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you see, Alex?
I think if you get mathy about it and say what the average vapor thinks is the appropriate response, and I think I to some extent share with the average, the appropriate response is, why do I have to respond to this at all?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've all experienced these products and how they've affected our lives positively, and to see legislation attacking it is somewhat unbelievable. And I think that's another thing that maybe keeps people, not necessarily keeps them from doing anything, but kind of they're sort of in the dark about all the threats, because you experience this stuff and you think, well, it just doesn't compute that anyone would be coming after this. I see dollar signs coming up in the chat. Yeah, that does make sense. But to your average person, I think that blown away by the fact that we're having to fight so hard for this.
One of the things that I think, and this is just my personal view, is I think a lot of times it's actually anger, an immediate anger that they have to fight. And I don't think a lot of people know how to divorce that emotional connection with what's going on, with the procedure that it takes to fight it. Everybody's had the instance where they get the ticket. You've done something wrong, you get a ticket in your car. And, you were in the wrong, you got the ticket, but boy, doesn't it just gall you that jerk comes up to the window and says, okay, sign the ticket before you get it. You really want to tell him what to do with that pen. I mean, even if you were speeding, So I think that people, the immediate response of anger at this point, that type of emotion is clouding their judgment on what we really need to be doing. Any thoughts on that?
You can definitely notice anger. I mean, I notice it on a daily basis. And the real problem for us is we need to figure out a way how to channel their anger into something positive instead of just shooting off their mouth online and actually not accomplishing anything.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is educating people as to how to participate in the legislative process, because once that anger boils down to something a little bit more constructive, I think people need to know how to take action.
Right, and preferably in a very simple fashion that everybody can follow, because I've noticed throughout the entire year that once you bring up the word legislate, everybody starts tuning out. Some people, we really want them to understand the bigger picture and the details. Other people just really don't care about the details. So it needs to be in a way that everybody sort of understands. And I've actually been thinking about maybe we should have a simplified version and a detailed version of a call to action in terms of what people could do, so they don't feel overwhelmed, and the people who understand things better are more able to judge what they could do more if they desire to do more.
I would like to see them take the time and energy that they use to post hand checks and put that time and energy into advocacy myself. But maybe that's just me.
I'm closing a bunch of windows. Stefan, you started chopping up on me after you said we need to have a basic call to action and a detailed call to action.
Right. Well, that's basically.
I have to. I have to laugh. I'm sorry. No, that's not. I'm not going to sign up for that. that's kind of that doubles my workload, and I'm seriously spending as much time as I can on this.
So you're not signing up to simplify it.
No. I am actually working very hard to make sure that our calls to action are more simple. If you take a look at what we've put out this year, it's essentially a paragraph. But in the case of like New York, where there's multiple bills, it's trying to kind of boil it down to a paragraph per bill, and that's it. And I'm trying to present these in a way that there's bullet points, there's links.
Right.
It's very like follow this. Here's a simple overview. Take action. And so I am really trying to keep it simple and visually appealing. I know that people sometimes have looked at CASA calls to action in the past, and you open up the page and it's just a wall of text, and that alone, without even reading the first word, I think people just it's like, okay, I've got to put on a pot of coffee and clear out some time in my schedule just to read this damn thing, and that's long before I even get an opportunity to take action. So we're really trying to we're leveraging CQ roll call to make these things point and clicky as possible. So I'm not going to take what we've already done to simplify it and then expand it for people who like to waste an afternoon reading. If you want, I am including links to the actual bills. Sorry, like I said, you broke up on me, so I caught up with your spot.
But the example I had in mind is if you take the average public use ban, right? The general reaction when I propagate calls to action on public use bans is that there's always a small percentage of people who go like, well, you just shouldn't vape where you can't smoke. I mean, that's common sense, and I don't see anything wrong with that. No, this is blah 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 blah. Like, yeah, but it's more than just don't vape where you can't smoke. It's also, are there exemptions for businesses? Do you want to continue to sample products in a vape store? Can the vape store actually still operate? And it's like the simple version of, oh, it's a public use ban and it means this and that and this is what's going on, sort of sometimes misses the point that people need to understand. And then you get into a whole lot more details, and before you know it, you're writing 10 pages of what this actually means.
Yeah, there is a little bit of follow-up here, and I'm trying to stick to something kind of talking point length about what at least CASA's position on indoor use bans. Place bans of any kind, and it really is a fairly simple concept. It may be so simple that I think it sort of goes past people, but the real core issue with vape bans, it's not that you're now prohibited from vaping in the grocery store or the movie theater or the library. Yes, those are common sense things that we can all, I think, to some extent agree on. Don't vape at the daycare center. That's not cool. Or the state is lumping these products in with smoking. They're sending a message to everybody. These products are just as harmful as smoking, and that's simply not true. And we would rather keep it in the realm of personal preference. The businesses themselves, they can come to the conclusion on their own whether or not they want to prohibit or allow the use of these products, and that's simply, that's the way it should be, because there's no immediate threat.
Right.
I realize as I'm talking now that was longer than it should have been.
See, once you get into these things, it's going down a rabbit hole.
And then we have those occasions where those public officials use the system to address more than one issue in a single bill, though it may be a public ban or a public use ban. They also throw in an issue of licensing. They also throw an issue of this. They also throw this or whatever. And sometimes we end up in the bad position of having to be defensive on a bill that we probably don't want them. We don't want to come out and say we're defensive against. If, for example, if you look at the youth protection bill, the draft youth protection bill that was submitted in one state, they go as far as talking about the cartage of the product between stores. How does that affect youth protection?
It doesn't.
So it gets very complicated when we get these great omnibus bills but then they title it with the most favorable title. Those are very dangerous.
Yeah, and there's something else to kind of add that what you just said. There is, and somebody actually just brought this up about Indiana in chat. I believe one of the new bills coming in Indiana would prohibit issuing a tobacco retail license to any facility that has a pharmacy located on the premises. So that means grocery stores have pharmacies in them. So grocery stores would no longer be able to sell any tobacco whatsoever. And looking at that, it's you can see that either about this bill, they're biting off more than they can chew. Some provision like that would actually keep that bill from going anywhere, because grocery stores are grocery stores and they're all over the place, and I'm sure the grocery store lobby is moderately powerful. So adding in weird details like what you just mentioned, it's possible that whoever sponsors stuff like that is their heart's not just not in it, but yeah, sort of the other side of the coin there.
Yeah, that those type of bills really do bother me in that respect. Hang on just a second here. Let me make a quick change to something because I've got a weird echo going on my end. Hang on.
Maybe it's the hangout. Mine's been acting weird too.
Is that? Hopefully, let's see if that's any better in the audio department. It might be a little bit better right there. Okay. Let's see. So So we were talking about that, and the other thing that I was thinking about. Good. Okay, so we fixed the one with the audio problem. XSplit's got some new settings. Outstanding. The other thing that concerns me quite a bit is because we're getting these bills so early, and Alex, you and I have talked about this, is we see there's something we didn't see last year's draft bills. We really didn't see a lot of draft bills. And the draft bill comes in and everybody's up in arms because, the draft bill is the ugliest piece of legislation that can exist because it asks for everything. But in truth, it's not finished yet. So we really don't know where to respond. So do you want to pick up on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, yeah, in draft form, you don't have a bill listed, and Washington is a pretty good example of that. In that particular bill, it touched on so many different issues that it could very well get broken up into many different bills. And so you just don't know. Yeah, like you said, you don't know where to respond, and there's something to be said for kind of holding back a little bit. You don't want to. I can't say this without being gross. You don't want to shoot your load, too soon. If you
Here, let me
rally
save
the
you.
troops,
It's keep your powder
take
dry. That's a
action.
better one.
Damn it! I can't believe I didn't know that. That would be a horrible game show contestant.
That was awesome.
This is just Alex getting back at everything.
So if you don't keep
being
your
able to
pants
drop
on,
an F-bomb.
I know, right?
I don't need revenge for that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've completely derailed this relatively important.
And there we have the entertainment section of the show. Anyway.
That's funny. Oh my God. Thank you, Alex.
If you bartender. So you got to keep your pants on with your powder, and it's if you rally the troops early, then it's weird, but from one action to the next, the people develop a fatigue, and you've got tons of people that may have taken action now, but down the line when you really need them, they're kind of looking at you like, well, I already did that. So that's something that we struggle with. Fortunately, I don't see a lot of people unsubscribing from our list, or people are relatively passionate about this, and so when we issue an update or a call to action, people do actually answer, which is good. But it is always something to be conscious of.
And it is I don't see the extreme of unsubscribing from the threads or pulling out of Facebook groups, but understand that it is just as threatening those people who go, I've done this enough, I'm just sick and tired of doing. That's very dangerous also.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, it is exhausting, and it can be overwhelming, but it's not going to stop.
No.
So
No, it's
get
not.
over it. It's if you enjoy these products, you're going to have to pay attention, I think, and it's even if you're just spreading the word, that's But then again, I still have to wonder, I mean, is it really that hard to click a button and send a message? Or, I think between the various groups, we've done a lot of work to make this easy. And a lot of what we're coming from, I think I might be straying into territory that we were going to discuss as well.
Well, it's 43
later
after.
on,
We can go ahead and roll that way. This might be the most fluid segue we've ever had.
That was good.
One of our goals is, we realize that there are thousands of people out there who they don't have the time or even, maybe the skills to be in a leadership or management type position as far as advocacy is concerned. So we've done a lot of work to engage as many people as we can to be the numbers that we need to make that presence, make them feel just how passionate we are about this. And like I said, a lot of times that really comes down to just mobilizing the troops. And so, I'm sort of baffled at at anybody that comes in and says, I gotta deal with this sending an email crap again. This is too much. I'm out. That that seems strange to me. So anyway.
Well, one of the things that I think that confuses people at this stage in the game is, let's go back a year ago. And a year ago, um, there were a few new advocacy groups that came on the scene that started making some differences. But up before that point, I mean, if you go back 18 months, you can honestly say the only truly active advocacy front that for the entire industry was CASA, really, as it was organized and could actually reach any number of users. That, I mean, there were a few other clubs out there that were bigger, but when it really came to the advocacy game, CASA was it. And I think a lot of people need to look at why all these other groups came into being. And I think we can look at the way we need to look at that is by taking a few minutes and going back over, some of the ones that we work with, and helping people understand better what their mission is and what they're actually trying to achieve. And being the quote unquote grandfather organization for all of them, or grandmother, if Julie was here or not. So that wasn't, wait, that didn't come out right.
Wow. You're in trouble, Joe.
I will let Alex take this away before I step all over myself and tell us exactly what CASA does.
Well, to say that I understand your point there about the only organization that really effectively represented the industry, the entire industry. There's Julie. We do not represent industry at all. We are here for the consumer, and of course we want access to these products. So sort of in a roundabout way, we end up being involved in some industry issues. But as an organization, we don't speak on behalf of the industry, and it is also possible that we would find ourselves at odds with industry on certain issues. So that's just sort of something to keep in mind. We are the only organization currently active at the national level that represents consumers and consumers only. I lost my train of thought there. But that is our role, and I have seen, and I think you've brought this up, and some other people have brought this up, that they are reluctant to be on board with industry associations, organizations, whatever, because they feel that CASA is representing their interests. Whereas, I would happily say that, why, yes, you should be catering to your customers and what we want as far as policy and stuff is concerned. In all honesty, at the end of the day, no, we are not going to lobby necessarily on your behalf. We're not putting together calls to action that are necessarily things that an industry association will be able to do. And as industry, retailers, manufacturers make money. You guys have a lot more resources than Joe Public and Jane Public, who are sort of confined to maybe coughing up $5 to $10 here and there. Certainly consumers have been able to rally together and make very meaningful and substantial and welcome donations to CASA, but people who are actually making money off of this industry are more capable of donating to an association, funding efforts like fly-ins and lobbying and things that cost a lot of money that we simply cannot afford.
So if I was to ask you in the shortest definition, CASA wants what for the vaping industry?
We want access.
Wow. See, that's a big thing. That means there's no limit on flavors. There's no limit on the nicotine. Though CASA does agree that the youth protection is a good idea. Okay, but we want it you guys want it available to all adult users as they choose.
We want adult access and awareness of these products. We want truthful representation of these products. We want accurate information about these products.
Yeah, and a lot of people really, I think that a lot of people have confused sometimes, where the goals of different things are. So I really do appreciate that. Was a great definition, I think. Any other comments, Stefan? Any comment?
No, completely there with Alex. Except in the part where we might have a different position on certain things. I know that from an industry perspective, you're looking at things slightly differently, but I must say I'm quite happy that so far all our main big issues align perfectly.
Robin, any comments there?
I'm going to say to them what I said to you before we started the show, because we go to events and stuff, and I end up talking to a lot of people and explaining to them who we are, and, if they're consumers, I say, because a lot of the times you guys are there too, and I'll say, you should go over there. They don't even know that the C in CASA stands for consumer, and I'm floored. Like, I'm totally floored that they don't know that, and they don't always know that I meet vendors who don't know that the T at CAFATA is for trade, and I'm like shocked because I kind of feel like everybody should know these things, who we all are, what all of our purpose is, what we're trying to do, and I'm totally floored sometimes.
And there's a couple of comments in the chat, and I'm going to throw this back and forth between Alex and I. Is CASA stands by one of the tenets that allows them to be able to do what they're doing. One of the beliefs that they have is in tobacco harm reduction. So they apply the principles of tobacco harm reduction in what they do. Now that doesn't always mean that there's a leading team of scientists and behavioral people and all kinds of people that are still doing other research in tobacco harm reduction. But they take that information and they implement it, or at least that's what I've seen. Did I get that close enough, Alex?
Somehow I feel like I'm confused. I guess where we fall in the conversation about tobacco harm reduction, I think I was expecting that to go a different direction. But the broader conversation about tobacco harm reduction is absolutely something that we incorporate in our advocacy efforts. So we are not limited to just electronic cigarettes. Tobacco harm reduction includes basically all smokeless forms of consuming nicotine, which includes the patch and the gum, and smokeless tobacco. And something that people should realize, I've said this several times before, that we have a lot more data about than we do about electronic cigarettes, and that data is actually what's informing what we know about electronic cigarettes. And so when we talk about risks and the benefits to smokers, we're actually getting a lot of that from 10 years of data from Sweden. If that kind of answers, I think, where you were going.
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to make sure everybody understood the relationship between THR and CASA, that you guys have taken that as a guiding principle in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to look into that, I would like to mention that all the advocates who are listening to this, even though a lot of vapers are totally not interested in other reduced harm alternatives, I would really recommend looking at older webinars and older material that public health departments and lung association, etc., have put out during those days when they were fighting those other alternatives. Because if you just take out those products and you insert the word e-cigarette, it is the same doctrine, it is the same religion, it is the same message. And you'll hear all the same things we've been hearing in the vape space in terms of, yeah, well, the flavors are going to be attracting kids, so we have to deal with that. And yeah, we don't want people using these things in public. And, like literally everything has remained the same. So if you go back in history a bit and you look at these other alternatives, even though you're not interested or not using them, it teaches you a lot about how our opponents think and what their continued strategy is.
So with that, I mean, we're talking about the biggest effort there for the consumers. So we really, because we try to get all the information out for everybody. I know that Stefan works very closely with Safada, and I think some people would need to understand what Safada is trying to do and what their goals are, and what they're going. And I do want, before we go any further, I just want to remind everybody that both of these agencies are 501 chapter groups for education. Okay. Not so much as the word charity. I don't want to use the word charity here because that's not right. Okay. So that means that they're a nonprofit group for education. And Safada, that would be CASA, and then Safada is a nonprofit group for a trade association, which is a different animal. Could you give us kind of a summary of what's going on with what Safada is, Stefan?
Sure. Technically, everything Alex said that CASA can do or isn't doing, because of the business angle and the fact that you can't have a consumer agency that really stands up for the industry without immediately being attacked as being industry shields. Safada fills the void in representing the voice of the businesses in the industry, and does so pretty much at the federal level most of the time. Safada National is really focused very federally. The members, however, can form local chapters and under the same banner and within the same network deploy whatever is needed locally. It is a little different from a state association because we're sort of like a direct division. But what we do is we take care of just about anything in terms of business angles, whether it's a member who needs to know something about what specific codes they need to use in their tax filings, because, well, we're not a tobacco product, so I cannot fill out that we're in the tobacco industry. We help them with that. We help with legal assistance. We have the fly-ins in DC, and we deploy evil lobbyists. Because everybody always thinks that, well, once you get into the lobbyist game, it's like evil and nasty, and unfortunately, that's how politics work, and it's how you get certain things done. So, yeah, we're also very heavily focused on the political side of things. So, basically doing what CASA isn't doing and can't be doing and shouldn't be doing. And so far, a lot of our efforts align and overlap, which works for me.
And one of the things with the state organizations is one of the goals that the state organizations should have is to obtain a lobbyist. Now,
yep.
Now here's where I want to show a strange comparison here between CASA and Safada. Okay, there is no point at which CASA is ever going to be able to.
Your sound is breaking up.
Something really weird happened there.
Yeah, there's like a beeping or something.
Oh, hang on a second.
End. Yeah, on my end anyway. Is that what you guys heard?
Yeah, it was robot-like.
Yeah. That was good, Stefan.
Oh, it wasn't me. It was Joe.
I'm not sure.
Is that any better?
Sounds better to me.
It seems
Okay.
to be a.
So, so do you see at any point that CASA is going to employ 50 lobbyists in 50 states, Alex?
I don't think we can afford that. No.
No. And it's not even reasonable, is it?
You broke up on me.
I said,
Was there
and
a
that
second
wouldn't even really be a
part of it?
reasonable thing, would it?
Say that again.
Heck. Hang on just a minute. Let me fix something.
Okay.
Now you're clear. Of
Oh,
course.
okay.
When he says that, yeah, that part.
There, of
clearly
course,
makes
now it
sense.
comes back.
Yeah.
I said that's not even a reasonable thought, really, for CASA.
Us having a lobbyist, a CASA-funded lobbyist in each state.
Yeah.
No, us employing a lobbyist in one state is sort of out of our capabilities.
Okay. Now I turn the same question to Stefan. At the state level, how unreasonable is it that a lobbyist should be funded?
How unreasonable? Actually, the question should be how reasonable is it to expect every state to have at least one lobbyist representing industry interest? And I would consider that not just reasonable. I would consider that both inevitable and absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I think it's one of the tools that a lot of people don't understand, that we need that. That all businesses, not just the vape industry, anytime a business has any interest that is going up against state politics, that they need to have a lobbyist in place.
Yes, there's just no way you could spend your time building the relations, getting access to information early, and actually being able to just sit down and talk to your elected representatives in a simple, honest fashion and say, well, this is really a bad idea. Let me explain to you why. And lobbyists do have that level of access. They have networks. They understand what's going on. For any industry or any single business to believe that they could invest the time and effort to do this themselves, it's ludicrous. It's just, there's no way you're going to learn everything so fast that you're going to be even reasonably successful at it. So at that point, you, just like with lawyers and dentists and other services, at some point you need professionals, and lobbyists are exactly the tool you need for that.
So one of the things that I think, if I owned a vape store, and whatever state that I am, my first priority would be to ensure that I have some form of representation at the lobbyist level.
Yes.
So, and I think that particular idea for many business people in this industry right now it's not true.
No, but that's also because a lot of businesses, especially in our industry, a lot of businesses started by people who never owned a business. They never did business. Maybe they had a business, but it was something completely different and not something that was under political fire constantly and under attack. So I think it's a matter of not having the experience and not having the knowledge that these tools exist for a reason and that they are necessary for certain purposes. It's just inexperience.
And again, I want to remind people that when we're talking about this lobbyist thing right now, is it's not a product of joining SFATA to get a lobbyist. It is
Nope.
an action that the state performs once they start to come together.
Right, SFATA only takes care of the few lobbyists that we've got doing their work in DC and the law firm and the whole regulatory process. It is up to the states to organize themselves and get a lobbyist in the game. And I believe the Texas SFATA chapter is in the process of fundraising for one. And right now, in I think about 2 hours, the Southern California chapter is going to present our prospect lobbyist and bring up the fundraising. And here in the north, we're going to do it on the 12th next month. And we're basically looking to raise $80,000 to pay for the lobbyist for the entire year. And I can tell you this: the businesses here better not disappoint me.
Yeah, and I want to make, and the other thing I want to bring to to people's attention is, other than SFATA organizing at the state level, there are some states that have created an independent retail group or a smoke-free, whatever the state name, Tennessee, Michigan, whatever, and they have started to create these organizations of vendors with the intent of getting a lobbyist. So if you are in any of these states and you own a vape shop and you're looking at, there is no way that you can personally afford a lobbyist, you need to be reaching out to these organizations in your state and becoming part of it, because this way, if you have 100 vape shops, that $60,000, that $20,000, whatever that magic number is spread out among all of these shops. And now you still get the same representation, but you're doing it without taking on the individual price of it yourself. Now, I do want to go into one kind of a special circumstance. In this industry, we have a few retailers and a few manufacturers that are very big. They are very sizable corporations already. And to those, I have the same message: is if you're big enough to have your own interest, you need to get a lobbyist. That's what every other industry does. So,
of course, the really important thing is that the more lobbyists are deployed defending or representing the same interests with overlap, you need an extra layer of organization between all these organizations in order to make sure that everybody stays on the same page and everybody knows what everybody else is doing, in order to not create additional confusion. Or, I mean, we've just seen this here in California. There's a draft bill that's floating around where a sizable business decided to do something about closing a loophole on zero nic sales, and nobody knew about this, and it sort of lands on our radar, and of course freaks us out, because you don't go introduce a bill unless you've got lobbyists and a management team to manage a bill from the inception all the way to the end. If you don't, the bill is going to be seized by our opponents. They're going to twist it into something else, and the rest of us just get to clean up the mess. So in order to have lobbyists in the game, we also need a wider network where we have a decent protocol established for communications amongst ourselves.
very important, and that is a very key point, and that's exactly what we saw when we were up in the state of Washington. There were four or five different good efforts that had been started, but the key message that we brought together is, if you independently work, you're fighting each other and everybody else. So working together, and even including, and this goes back to any of these state groups that form up and get a lobbyist, you need to make that reach out to CASA, because keep in mind, a great number of these issues, we're on the same path. So getting that done in that manner.
Right. I think of it as in terms of you want to avoid friendly fire.
Yep. You got something, Alex?
Yeah, I was going to actually, I might be backtracking something I didn't touch on earlier. One of the important things, one of the important reasons to include us is that we can actually say things that industry can't. There are health aspects of these products that vendors and even an industry lobbying group is not actually legally allowed to say. So we can make that argument. We can direct our members to inform lawmakers about the health aspect of these products, which is especially important when you're talking to your customers. A vendor can't legally say this will help you stop smoking. In other, the alternative is, if you'd like to find out more information, please visit CASA. And so that's just as much as that helps you, I think, at the point of sale, can also help you when dealing with legislators.
So So these are what we talked about this point. At this point, if you have any questions in the chat, please go ahead and put them in. So to this point, we've talked about the recognized consumer leader for advocacy front and what would seem to be the trade organization leader, or at least trade at the federal level, and that does it. Now there are still a lot of other agencies there. Now I kind of want to bring up and address this topic because so many people don't understand that. I'm going to use a strange analogy here for a moment. A garden. You've got a garden, and when you start a garden, the only thing you need is a spoon, right? Does everybody agree with me there? Just a spoon.
I just start up with a partner, but then again, I'm weird.
I mean, could you imagine plowing the field with just a spoon, weeding the field with just a spoon? You know, it's crazy. Okay? So there are many tools and many different methods of tools that we can utilize, and that's where some of the other agencies come in. Like Greg Connolly has moved out and formed AVA. And AVA's mission is like a PR firm for all of the vaping industry. And Greg spends a ton of time creating op-eds and information that goes out to actually combat some of the crazy and insane articles that we have. And this is a good thing for us because he's able to focus his efforts in that area. Okay? And you've got people like the Vaping Militia. We kind of have a weird role. We kind of go all over the place. We look at what's the most immediate need and try to get in there and fix it. I mean, that's what we try to do. The other thing we also do is we're really good at bridging gaps and getting coalitions of people and moving in the same direction. And, you know, this is a great thing for our industry, allowing us to use different tools and different people in different roles to accomplish the same goal. Yeah. So I'll throw this back out in the room so if anybody else wants, or throw this back around. Any other comments that you guys want to make? Robin?
I don't know. Just, you know, in addition to what you were saying, I think we all kind of overlap each other. Do you know what I mean? There's like some overlapping in every direction, but none of us really truly does what another group does. You know, and I think it's important that people understand that.
Alex?
You know?
No, I don't have anything to add yet.
Yeah?
Yet.
Stefan?
Stay tuned.
I get the question a lot. What exactly does the Vaping Militia do? And my shortest answer is usually glue.
Wow.
It's the glue that holds everything together.
You know, so I know that a lot of people are wondering, and you know, I like to remind people, if one of them specifically speaks to you as the one that you need to support, that's the one you need to support.
Yep.
Their efforts. You know, if there's no right or wrong, you've got to make a decision. You've got to educate yourself enough to understand what they're doing and how they do it. Okay, so where are we going next?
I think that, you know, to maybe even expand on your point, you know, there's no pressure, honestly, to pick one group over the other. We're all here working very hard to, at the very least, provide useful information to people. So even if it's just a matter of, you know, pick your flavor, you know, there isn't a single one of us, I think, that's asking anybody to wave one flag. So if the Vaping Militia presents the information to you in a way you find useful, then pay attention there. It's not. This isn't a competition amongst the various groups.
Right.
We all fulfill, at least speaking, at CASA, we fill a very specific role. Safata fills a very specific role. The Vaping Militia, you guys tend to float around where you're needed, which is in itself kind of a specific role. Really, it's more about just pick a place to start paying attention.
That's really important because so many people, I mean, if you're getting confused over who's giving you the right information when, in a sense, everyone's giving you the right information, there's very few times where you're going to find anything contrary between these groups. But I just want to go back, is at some time there may be some contrary between the consumer and the vendor drive. And I'm sure that will be very, very clearly stated.
Yeah, so far I can't think of a specific example that is currently out there where we have conflicting interests. There may be times, I think, kind of what you just kind of touched on. There may be times where it appears like a conflict, but in reality, it's just the two different groups focusing on different aspects.
Yep.
So that might be something that down the line, would mediation. I just got a phone call, so I'll be right back.
Okay, thanks. Stefan, you have anything you want to add in there?
No, I just saw a good question from Jojo in the chat saying, aren't there any packages with advocacy information, etc., etc. So I just directed her to National Vapers Club, who has pretty good information packages for both the legislative side and advocacy/activism side.
There's also one on the militia site. Let me get the link for it. We just put it in a new spot. That's how come I have to go get the link for it.
I just love it when people move your stuff around.
Well, regretfully, I hate to say it, one of that flexible idea that the militia tries to hold to has also been kind of a problem for us, because we have, in doing that, by staying flexible, we also try very hard to get things available to people in a very easy and simple format. And sometimes we make a good guess, and then we find out we guessed wrong, and then we have to make corrections. And on the Vaping Militia site, there's a studies download, and the studies download right at the top is the info packet. It has what you would consider to be the bread and butter studies and an associated paragraph for each one to make them easy to present when you're dealing with some form of person who needs information, state, local, or federal. Or Stan Glantz if you want to email it to him.
I don't think he's going to be too keen on hearing from me.
I know you're part of that elite club. I've been blocked by Stan Glantz also.
Last time he wrote about something we were directly involved in, he basically called us shills for the big tobacco industry. So yeah, I'm still waiting for my limousine to arrive and the private jet and
there's
all
a
that.
really good question. There's a really good question in chat. Lisa Bell brings up the question: What good would lobbyists be if 75% of the states have banned in their major cities? And actually, that's kind of a very interesting question, because frequently when we focus the efforts of lobbyists, they are at the state level, and they do not usually have connections into the local sphere unless that particular politician is moving up in the ranks in the state. So the city levels, this is one of the reasons why we repeatedly say the city level is something you should not ignore. But we have additional information. There's additional things that you can use at the state level or at the city level. Keep in mind that when you're at the city level, that businesses at that city level can show the most economic impact. And this is why we have to get vape stores participating in city level politics, because their testimony as to economic impact is crucial to changing the minds of city managers. So, really, really important thing that we have to get done there.
Absolutely. Plus, the idea of having lobbyists at the city level would never work. You would, first of all, need so many of them. Industry would not be able to fund that. And second of all, the process of lobbying is the process of building long-term relationships. And building those at all those levels, all across, is just it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So this is definitely something where both the consumers and the local businesses need to together interact together and make sure that they're good, upstanding citizens of their community. So join a chamber of commerce, join a Lions Club, join a Rotary Club.
Coalitions.
Right, exactly. Reach out to your customers. Have vape meet so your customers can be aware of what's going on locally, what they can do about it, and you know what? Some vendors are pretty good at it. A lot of vendors, unfortunately, are not picking up the ball.
And we do, and one of the things that we do see, and we saw this as the way they did Minnesota, Clearway very effectively affected legislature ordinances at the local level, so that it seemed to be like a domino effect, and we're seeing this very, very common in California, and it's really tough because the nice thing about local politics is, and I'm going to remind everybody of this very specifically, the easiest level of politics to affect and change is local politics. So just because the ban is there, don't give up the ship, okay? Because a lot of people don't think about certain things. Like, for example, a product in the early 1900s that 38 states effectively had bans, and well over 400 cities had specific bans on it because it promoted aberrant behavior, caused damage to livestock, and I think the automobile is doing pretty good now.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, so sometimes we have to use the scale of time to fix a problem, but you know, it's not hopeless. And by the way, for those of you who are wondering, the odd part of that is there is still, to this day, a single area in the United States that has a prohibition on cars. Okay? And if
How is it enforced?
It is enforced because it is an island. Okay? Mackinac Island
Oh,
in Michigan,
right.
you cannot have a
Yes.
personal car on Mackinac Island. So, and yes, I have to claim that. That's my home state.
Similar automobile-related legislation in which only in 2 states is still actually enforceable, having your own gas.
Yeah.
At one point, a majority of the United States, you were not allowed to pump your own gas, and those laws are still only enforced in New Jersey and Oregon.
Yep.
We were just in Oregon, and I got a rental car, and I'm going to the airport, and I pull up to the gas pump, and this old guy comes out and starts coming towards my car, and I opened my door and I said, "Hey, get away from the car!"
It's really funny.
I'm from Michigan, and an old guy comes up on your car, you worry.
It was funny, and I said, "Hey, we're not in New Jersey. I don't understand," because I live in New Jersey, so I know that,
So I knew New Jersey, but I didn't know Oregon until I experienced it myself.
It was funny.
Yep.
Very funny.
He's lucky I didn't beat him off with a stick.
Oh my God, he was this little old man.
Joe Barnett beats up old people.
Beat him up with his Poliak.
Leaving a big smoke screen. Oh, sorry, paper screen.
Wow, that's fun.
Okay, so the next little area I want to go into is a lot of other people. There's a lot of other agencies out there, a lot of other groups that are coming together. that are trying to move forward and try to help in the advocacy effort. And there are some from outside our industry and inside our industry, like Americans for Tax Reform is working with us for the time. And these coalition groups that come in that have the same interests as us, it's a good thing to utilize them. And I'm going to step on a very sensitive topic for some people right now and remind people that even when certain legislation comes down, we may be aligned in the same decision choice as other industry. Altria and Reynolds aren't too favorable on bans in certain states, and they're willing to contribute lobbyist power and money, and it happens to be the same decision that we're doing. And I really want, the reason I want to bring this up is I want people to think about this statement, okay? Is, yes, it's big tobacco. I get it, okay? But if they're at that moment aligned with us, we should work together. Because for you to take any other stance means that if they support a ban, now you're going to rally for that ban? Have you lost your mind? Okay, don't shoot yourself in the face over a principle argument that's there. Use what resources that are going in the same direction you are and use them wisely. So, if anyone wants to comment on it, go ahead.
What matters is the fight now. The fact that at some point positions are maybe completely not aligned, we'll deal with it when the time comes. But you always hear the term big tobacco being thrown around, and it's always in a derogatory fashion. And you know what? They sort of deserve it. However, even within the industry of the big tobacco companies, these companies are competing constantly against each other. They're backstabbing each other. They're in their own little world of drama and legislation, and not all big tobacco companies are as evil as, say, RJR. In fact, I had a meeting with a vapor products company that is technically owned by big tobacco just last week, and it's interesting to see what their ideas are and what their positions are, and there's a lot of difference in how we in the vapor industry look at it, but there's also an enormous amount of overlap. So when there's an alliance to be had of some sort, even though it's not a formal one, but you know what, they throw a lobbyist in and they work on exactly the same issue with exactly the same goals, that is not something people should be dismissing simply because it's big tobacco. However, you still want to be very careful and pay very close attention to what exactly happens.
I'd suggest plenty of flea spray so you don't bring anything home.
Yes.
Alex, you care to comment on that?
Well, I guess it's kind of if. There's a lot of if in this. You know, we have spent a certain amount of time trying to identify bills authored by the majors, and a lot of times you can see that, you know, there's language in there that sort of specifically exempts their products from certain bits of regulation. So yeah, there are, I think, certain fights where their lobbying power is useful, but I there is no quid pro quo with these guys.
Right.
Let's get that straight. Even though they may be useful in one particular fight, they are not necessarily on our side all of the time. They are business, like Stefan said, and like you said, Joe, bring the flea spray. It's they're in this to maintain their share of the market. So I guess it comes with a word of caution. They may be useful in certain aspects, but overall, we should all be very conscious of the fact that they are in this to position their products favorably, and there clearly is a difference in how people use the basic entry-level products versus the more advanced devices and refillable liquids, and they just aren't there yet. I don't know. I don't know if they're ever going to make that step. But you know. So.
Yeah, it's dangerous. You know, you have to anytime you know. If you look at world politics throughout history, there have been many times that the unusual allies have come together for certain things, only to be fighting over the same ground afterwards. So we need to be aware of that. We need to make sure we understand exactly what they are, who they are, and what they want. And remember, the next time we come to the table, we may not be on the same side.
Right. I think with big tobacco, you know, you get big power and you get big money. And while I would never think we should turn our back, you know, and always keep our eye on them, I do think they could serve a purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, well, one of the more interesting aspects in the big tobacco side is how they fight each other and how they can be useful being tied up fighting each other.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Yep.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is there's a number of other small or newer agencies that will be coming up as we go along, and just I want people to be cautious. I want people to judge those agencies on their actions. That's the key. You judge an agency that comes together, a group that comes together in this fight based on what they're doing, not what they say they'll do. It's always on what they're doing, because at this point we don't have time to wait for things to pan out. We have to go forward based on the current situation and how they are working within that situation. So there will be others come up, trust me. Some will be good for us, and some will be a little antagonistic, right, Stefan?
And some will probably be totally hopelessly clueless.
Yeah, but you have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Well, we got 30 minutes left. I wanted to make sure we covered a couple of things. Robin, have you got a calendar for the militia available?
I do.
Okay, let us know where we're going.
It's all up to date. Okay, January 31st, you will be at the West Michigan Vapor Fest, I guess, at noon, in the Delta, I can't even read my own writing.
Deltaplex.
That's what that says. In the Deltaplex Arena. And you'll have some of those new shirts with you, won't you?
Yeah, and also the other thing at that particular meet is there'll be people there from the Michigan Smoke Free Association. It's kind of their kickoff event. They're going to be the people that are leading it will be there. So if anybody's in Michigan and has a vape store and wants more information, show up.
Right. On February 28th till March 1st, you will be at the VCC Tampa, and that's at the Tampa Convention Center. They're great.
Alex will be there too.
Events. Alex will be there too. Yep, a lot of people will be there. I will not be there. On February 28th, I will be in Fort Wayne, Indiana at Vape in the Fest. Fred will be with me there, and it's just a one-day event, just the 28th. It's from 11 in the morning till 7 p.m. So if you're in that area, stop by and say hello, please. March 6th and 7th, Vape Fest. That's in Las Vegas at the Flamingo Hotel, and Stefan, you said you'll be there.
Yep.
We will be there, and Alex, I don't know if you're going to be there or not. I know you have family out there somewhere.
No, we will not be attending.
Okay. Then March 13th, 14th, and 15th, there's Vape Blast. That's in Dallas. The 13th is just business to business. The 14th and 15th is open to the public, and that's in the Fort Worth Convention Center. And Joe, you'll be there. Knock will be there, and I think Jim. I haven't talked to him, but I think Jim will be there.
Okay.
Right. March 20th and 21st is Vapor Slam. That's in North Carolina. It's in Winston-Salem, and that's at the Benton Convention Center. And that's you and me. April 17th and 18th is Bash, and that's at the Pheasant Run Resort in St. Charles, Illinois. And That's a big one from what I understand. I've never gone to that, but it sounds like it's huge. And there's other stuff coming up, but none of that we've actually pinned down yet. So I'll update you later.
So if we're having an event in Winston-Salem, does that mean we're going to have an excursion to the RJR headquarters over there?
You know, it's funny because I happened to fly with Greg Connolly the other day, and he mentioned something along those lines to me. You know, because we're going to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
We could make signs.
I was thinking about something a little more. Let's not go there.
I know. Teasing.
Do you get to take like a free tour of the facilities?
Wow.
I don't think you'll ever get a free tour from any tobacco company because a while ago I was looking through master settlement agreement documents and stuff. Did you actually know that tobacco companies have to approve federal inspectors at least 30 days in advance, and there's nothing that says that they just can't deny you, so they could basically just not give permission for federal inspections on their plantations.
Really?
Yeah.
So the only thing I have to compare that to is healthcare, because obviously that's my world.
Yes,
and
pretty much.
On any day and at any given moment, we call them the feds, but they're national inspectors. They can come walking in. They come walking in unannounced, and sometimes they try to trick and walk in at 3 o'clock in the morning. Same thing with the State Department of Health, at least here in Pennsylvania, and I think the others are pretty much the same. Like I've had them walk in, as a nursing supervisor, I've had them walk in at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, unannounced. It's what you expect. You kind of know where your window is, where they might come wandering in, but they have carte blanche, and they're like God when they come into your building. They get whatever they want.
Apparently, this is one of the benefits that they got through the master settlement agreement situation. So, wow, nice work if you can get it. I mean,
wow, seriously. Wow.
Oh, thanks, Rooster. Okay. Last thing I was going to talk about was, and we bring this topic up a lot, and I'm going to have to bring it up yet again, is earlier in the month there was a study that came out that showed some issues with formaldehyde being produced at higher levels or higher wattage. And Greg did an excellent job with a lot of his rebuttals that he put up on that. And I want to commend the community for bringing up some of the older information. I mean, we all remember back when we first started, there was that little chart that showed you the safe envelope, for your wicking material could be done. And you would think that with a good response like that the rest of it would just be, oh, that's a bad study, and we move forward to it. But yet again, our community has to go to the point of where now they start pointing at device manufacturers and they start pointing at vapers that use high volume vapes and trying to call them out specifically for their choice in how they vape. People, we're not doing ourselves any favor by every time something comes up, we have to find someone in our own community to crucify. It's just not working. It doesn't look good from outside people at all. Go ahead, Stefan.
If anything needs crucifixion, I would argue that if you look at the scientists' names on the studies and you look at their sources of funding and you look at their previous projects, the fact that there's 2 names on there that have been instrumental in the funding for this particular study traced back directly to a law firm that is known for filing class action suits against big tobacco companies, looks to me like we've got yet another enemy on our horizon.
Yeah, we you and I have talked about this one before, and there is a group, there is a community that really likes to find those things that are bad or those things that didn't go as planned as community, turn them into lawsuits very fast.
Yep.
We really do need to be constructive when we go to post on Facebook or things like that, I mean, there are times when we are going to have to come out with a negative tack, but really, we have to get to the point where we're not looking for that person to throw under the bus.
I wonder if it's whether people just didn't understand the study at all.
So I'm really hoping.
I mean,
go ahead.
Talking about people in the vape community not understanding the study.
right? Yeah, but I mean, mistaking the actual details of the study, the fact of the product being used and how it was used, and then just like not getting those details and just pointing their focus at something else. I mean, I've seen it happen with the flavor study that was done by Penny. Apparently, in the younger generation of vapers and even perhaps a lot of minors who are like online in certain communities, they mistook this as basically saying minors do not like flavors, which is of course the inverse of what we've constantly been saying, adults like flavors, but they took that study to mean that. And even with the study being out there and the details being out there, they just don't see what it was actually about, and that it wasn't saying that specifically. So I do have concerns that there's a lack of understanding what the studies actually mean.
Yeah, and then you take a study that is intentionally slanted in some form that basically has an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take the misunderstanding of the study itself, and that's a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yep. Of course, it's also something that a hostile PR company could make enormous great use out of.
You know, this is one of those things where CASA is going to come in very handy as the advocate, because one of the things, I know we talked about availability, but CASA also has consumer safety as a big banner. So I look to them to be the legitimate source if we run into a problem where we're actually harming ourselves.
Yeah, consumer protection, I think, falls under our umbrella, which is not to say that we are, an industry standards organization. I think people have kind of gotten the wrong idea about that. I've definitely seen people send messages in the group suggesting that we are the ones that should be doing testing on e-liquids and stuff like that. That doesn't fall under our umbrella at all. Those are things that the industry needs to take care of. We are simply, we have advisors that are scientists. We have members on our board that are scientists. These are people that we would defer to when it comes to interpreting scientific studies, so that we can communicate meaningful bits to consumers to let people know, what to let you know what you need to know about potentially harmful things in any of these products. That's more our thing. And also to kind of speak to, I think, something that you guys were talking about. There are people that should not quote science. It's one of the things that I think we all need to acknowledge is that this stuff is difficult to understand, and I think there are people who are very motivated and very enthusiastic about these products that may kind of grab a little snippet here out of a study and try to quote it to bolster their case, and may actually end up kind of misrepresenting the study and might end up actually doing harm. It is one of those things that we, I think, aspire to be better at, which is being able to kind of digest some of these complicated bits of science into useful talking points that are accurate, that people can use. um, there's I think a level of trust involved in that we are actually consulting experts before formulating these talking points, which we do. We're very thoughtful about the way that we, communicate data to people. But yeah, that's and that that also goes for legislation. There has been instances where people, I think, have panicked about stuff that's written in laws, and each one of us, each one of our organizations, we work with people who are skilled at deciphering information. Sorry, I'm going to have to get my picture off here.
You muted. There you go.
There we go. I'm back.
Yay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have legal training. I just have, I am highly motivated to the point that I'm going to sit here and comb through legislation. But I always check with someone who's got more experience than me, before I offer an interpretation about a bit of legislation. And I would strongly encourage other people to do that. It is possible, from the science perspective, from the legislative perspective, to kind of pick out a few bits that sound very threatening or maybe sound encouraging, and kind of glom onto that and interpret that in a way that is actually misleading. Please, one of the things I encourage people to, we should all be acknowledging our own limitations and reaching out to people who are more knowledgeable than us.
It always brings me back to a lot of people can remember this as kind of recent. It was the Great Cinnamon Study that was done, that the protocols for it were so absurd, and the problem was at that time we really didn't even understand the study because the protocols hadn't even been exposed. And one vendor, and I'll even bring these people out, Mount Baker Vapor, but as soon as this hit, got concerned because when they read it, they didn't understand it enough, and they pulled back the cinnamon buns, one of their best-selling juices. They pulled it off the shelf just long enough to figure what's going on, and the community was outraged. How could you take away our juice? Really, 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 really. That is a bad thing to have happened. That shows a very bad thing on the part of the consumer. That anytime a vendor makes the decision to try to protect you, you need to hold your ire and wait and let them find out what's going on. They're trying to do it for you. So, the same thing applies when we're trying to deal with legislation. Sometimes you want to jump out there and do things, but if you don't have a complete understanding of what that particular instance is, what the particular action is, you really need to wait for some of the quote-unquote experts that deal with it on a constant basis to weigh in and give you a little bit better idea of what's going on with that bill, So, kind of the last thing that I had to cover. You want to comment on that, Alex?
Well, yeah, just to, I think, expand on what you were saying about a vendor pulling a particular product or anything like that. I think sometimes people might have a tendency to react in a way that is, oh, that looks horrible for the industry. That looks bad. That makes us all look bad. In fact, it's just the opposite. Vendors, manufacturers taking responsibility for their products is a very good thing, and should be supported. Several other industries, other manufacturers are so large that to some extent they're putting profits over the protection of people, and so they'll wait until harm actually develops before they'll pull a product, or if the amount of, if the lawsuits, if the cost of the lawsuit doesn't exceed the cost of recalling the product, then they'll just they'll just settle. They're not necessarily going to look out for your best interests. So to be involved in a product category and be involved with manufacturers that are so safety conscious that they're willing to take that step and pull something off the market, that's actually kind of special, and manufacturers should be applauded for having that eye for safety.
One of the things that happened to me when I refer to as my former life, and one of the jobs that I was involved with before I ever came anywhere near this, I ran call centers, and during one of those times we got a request from a predominant manufacturer for hand tools who had a recall on a battery pack and charger that they had, and what we were to do was collect the name and address information so they could mail them a new one. And as soon as this recall went out, we started getting calls from Canada, and when we contacted the manufacturer, we said, we're getting calls from Canada about that product that you guys have under recall. Their response was, the case is still in the courts. We don't know if we're going to do it or not. So we don't want an industry that responds that coldly. We want an industry that is forward-thinking, and just because that particular product is not safe, they're willing to do something about it. Or they have suspicion that it might not be safe, they're willing to do something about it. That's what we want.
And this also brings up the importance of having GMP manufacturing processes, standards, and actually having a process in place that you can do a recall, because at this point most manufacturers aren't even capable of doing a proper recall.
I missed the last thing you said there, Stefan.
Yeah, me too.
Because at this point most manufacturers don't even have the possibilities of doing a recall, because they don't have tracking and tracing and processes involved that keep track of exactly where which batch and which stock and where it all went. So this is one of those things where industry needs to grow up quick. And part of the reason why perhaps more businesses didn't do a recall or a halt on during the whole cinnamon scare, they just weren't capable of doing it.
It's one of the things that we look at. Major corporations spend a major corporation will spend a lot of money on an individual product line to understand exactly what the safety concerns are, what the product's capable of, what its lifetime is, and things like that. And because we have this spread out industry, this basically cottage industry of stores, we don't perhaps get all that testing that we need. And I know as an advocate myself, the best thing that an industry can do for me is give me studies and tools. You give me those, I can do something.
And in the end, I think what we're seeing is growing pains, lots and lots of growing pains.
Yep. Alex?
To expand on what Stefan was saying, this is functions. This is one of the art of a trade association. Developing good. That's a conversation that you're going to have with other manufacturers, and being a part of that, I think, helps facilitate the conversations, and really the need for industry growing up. If industry doesn't get out ahead of it and develop those practices now, then they're going to be the ones that steps in and starts telling you how to do this stuff. And if you're not prepared for it, given the close association that people have made with these products and tobacco, those regulations are going to be very hard to adhere to. They're going to be designed to make entry into this market very difficult. And even if you're an existing manufacturer, it's going to be hard for you to comply. We've seen that already proposed with the FDA regulations. This stuff needed to happen, months ago. People needed to be working on this project, and anybody in the manufacturing department within the sound of my voice, take action and get involved with your trade organizations.
Well, I think we had a full plate today. We did good. So we're about 5 minutes out. Closing comments. I usually throw them to Robin first because she's the one that's sitting on the edge of her seat.
I have trouble sitting still, you know that. I guess get involved. It's such a big deal and it's so important. Just get involved at any level that you feel comfortable and capable, whether it be writing emails to politicians, showing up at hearings, whatever it is you feel comfortable doing. The other thing is, if you have questions about any of it, you hopefully after this show have a little bit more of an understanding of what these groups do and who we are and what we're about. We're all on Facebook. You got questions? Ask them. We'll answer them. But get involved, please.
And if
There's
you ask the
only
wrong
so
group,
many of us. Right. We'll send you to the other group. We'll send you where you need to go. We'll say, oh no, that's not us. Go there. But yeah, please get involved. There's not a lot of us doing this, and there's so many more of you guys. We need your help. We need your backup. That's all I got.
Alex, any closing comments? Did we lose him?
Everybody disappeared.
I don't know.
Oh, there you
He
are.
disappeared. I don't know. Alex?
Me? Oh,
Yeah,
you were
closing
asking me.
That's you, darling.
I didn't hear you. I thought Joe disappeared. I was like, oh, okay. Or maybe I guess I disappeared.
The wonders of Google Hangout.
On that note. Closing thoughts. Keep your eyes peeled. It's a busy year for us, so I think everybody at least paying attention to this show knows that we'll be doing what we can to crank out these calls to action as they become necessary, and all of us are very accessible, and so please don't hesitate to ask questions. The only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. Haha. I'm also a brilliant source for platitudes. If your level of commitment is stuck for whatever reason, if all you can do is click and send a pre-written email, then do that. Yeah. There are many different levels that people can get involved. If your level of participation is limited to throwing some spare change in an organization, then do that, and there's no shame in that. That is absolutely necessary, and along the way, maybe you'll click on a link that enlightens you as to other places that you can get involved. So take that opportunity, and yeah.
Stefan, any quick closing comments?
Quick one. SoCal SPADA is having their meeting in a few hours. If you're a business in SoCal, make sure you're there tonight, whether you're a member or not. We're having ours on February the 12th, and we're having quite a few members, quite a few businesses from SoCal actually attend our meeting, because we have the lobbyist from Enjoy here in California as a guest to explain what exactly is going on. So if you're a business in California, if you're in NorCal specifically, ask me, check the website, and hope to see you the 12th.
And last closing comments from me is normally I just tell everybody to vape safe and have fun, but I got a challenge for you this week. If you enjoyed the show at all, or you think somebody could be using it here in about an hour, the link will be posted to the YouTube video of this show. Share it with a friend. Let's get the word out there. Let's get people knowing what we're talking about. Thank you very much for your time, and we do so much appreciate you taking the time to listen to our rants and raves. Hopefully they help you some. Everybody have a good week, and we'll see you soon.